Several years ago, I had a chance to speak with Senator John McCain about his experiences as a prisoner of war in Vietnam.
Shock, sorrow, anger.
Although Senator McCain had recorded many interviews in which he described his imprisonment, what I wanted to explore with him was a story I'd heard about prisoners in the Hanoi Hilton using poetry to keep their spirits up.
It has always been my favorite poem. Maybe it's a commentary on my level of sophistication, but I think there are
I like it a lot.
I
I like
think
this
yeah,
poem.
I think there are parts of this poem that are truly remarkable and meaningful to particularly to those of us who may have undergone some difficulty. So this poem is by Robert Service, and it's called The Cremation of Sam McGee. Now, Sam McGee was from Tennessee, where the cotton blooms and blows, and why he left his home in the South to roam the poles, God only knows. He was always cold, but that land of gold seemed to hold him like a spell, though he'd often say in his homespun way that he'd sooner be in hell. I used to know it all by heart, but that was quite a few years ago. I learned it by having it tapped to me using our tap code through the wall in our prison that was known as the Hanoi Hilton. For a period of time, I guess it was a couple of years, I was next door to cell to a fellow from Tennessee whose name was Bill Lawrence, and he later was an admiral, and he was one of our real genuine heroes in prison. Well, we had this tap code, and it's a very simple tap code. You divide the alphabet up into letters, and you tap different letters. It sounds a lot more complicated. So he would tap to me a couple of lines of this every day for quite a while, and that's
And see, it's reciting poetry to each other.
and he was reciting this poem to me, the Cremation of Sam McGee. That's how I learned it.
And would you then recite it to yourself?
Oh yeah,
Yourself, or
he would
just as
he would type
social?
it to me, and I would type back what he had typed to me, and then afterwards I would go over it and add it to the what I already know. One thing having prison is
Just-
plenty of time.
And so memorization.
Yes, memorize, and to keep your mind active is really important in that environment. And just by tapping, we weren't tapping military secrets to each other or anything like that. We were just keeping each other's spirits up. One of the aspects of the story that is obvious, but it always hits home with a lot of us is this promise. Now, a promise made is a debt unpaid, and I swore I would not fail.
And so this is about honor.
Honor and commitment and love of a friend. And the difference between success and failure, and I mean failure accommodating the enemy in prison, was the bond and the debt that we felt to uphold our honor because we knew that others were upholding ours.
Yeah.
In other words, when I would go to interrogation, and sometimes it was very rough, sometimes not so rough, but I would keep in mind that I was going to go back to my cell and I was going to tap on the wall to Bill Lawrence and others what happened to me. And I didn't want to let them down. And that's why they kept us for years in solitary confinement, or a couple of people to the room, to try to prevent this kind of communication and
Solidarity.
bonding. Yeah. And those that did not communicate, it had very unfortunate results. And they feel abandoned, and they didn't have the
Right.
strength that was transmitted to each other through the walls. And one of it reminds me, and I think it's at Verdun Memorial from World War One. And I can't remember who wrote it, but an age shall not mar them as those of us who are left behind. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning we will remember them.